television reporter and anchor, many of those years for Fox 6. Heard of it? She's covered presidential campaigns, been on a warship with the U.S. Navy, covered NFL games, created her own cold case series, and told stories of everyday heroes, until life handed her the most unforgettable story of all, her own. In 2021, at the height of a thriving career, Suzanne was diagnosed with a brain tumor. Overnight, her world shifted from deadlines and headlines to doctor's appointments and brain surgery. No matter where you are on your path, stress, pressure, and unexpected challenges are part of the journey. What matters most is how you respond. Suzanne's story is powerful, not just because of what happened to her, but because of what she chose to do with it. And today, she's here to help us, each of us, to discover how to do the same. Thank God. Please join me in welcoming Suzanne Spencer.
Yeah, sure. We're going to get ourselves comfortable up here, if that's okay with everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to steal the clicker. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Oh, goodness. So for 10 years, my job was to tell everyone else's story. I was a successful TV news reporter and main anchor in 2 different television markets in the Midwest. Most recently, as Annie mentioned, I anchored the morning show in Milwaukee for Fox 6. So when you are in TV news, no day is the same. You may be reporting one day, interviewing someone during their hardest moment, or anchoring the next, reading the teleprompter in studio, or going off the cuff for hours with no script during breaking news. Every day, you are on a deadline, and you get pretty good at asking questions. Can you guys hear me in the back? That's my first question of the day. What is this? You know when you're at networking events, right? And so many people in the room will come up to you and say, so what do you do? I like asking it this way. What is the story behind where you are today? What is the story behind where you are today? We've all got them. Today, I will share with you a bit about mine. So in the midst of a typically busy day in the newsroom, breaking stories, writing scripts, deadlines, I looked down and saw my phone light up. It said no caller ID. Do I answer it or let it go? Something in me, though, knew this wasn't just any call. My stomach dropped. My heart started racing. This was one of those calls, right? The kind that doesn't just interrupt your day, the kind that change your life. I answered. And that phone call set in motion the greatest challenge I have overcome, being diagnosed with a brain tumor. What tools did I have? What framework did I use? I have one now. Because over the past 4 years, I've lived through the toughest challenge of my life. And I've crafted a framework around it. For the big things, of course, but the small stuff too, right? The stuff that happens every day that doesn't go according to plan. When the script of your day, your life changes. By the end of this talk, ooh, something underneath there. You will be better prepared for those challenges with a framework that you can use. That framework is your mic. It's all going to come full circle. The mic, M-I-C. Your mic is your mindset, your inner voice, and your community. Your mic is your framework when the script changes. So this is called Creative Mornings, right? So I got to think of something fun to get creative with you all. So in TV, every time before we get on TV, we got to do a mic check. Mic check, right? So when I say mic, I would like you all to say check. Mic? Check. Mic? Check. Okay, just making sure. So in TV news, we work quickly. You're assigned a news story every day. So you're often familiarizing yourself with something or someone that you may know nothing about. So we'll do that now. got to give you a little bit about me. So my roots in entrepreneurship and storytelling go back to when I started my first business at the age of 7. It was called Beat-a-Loo-Hoo. I made and sold jewelry as a kid at every family party back home in Indiana. My roots in toughness I like to trace back to running, which is my sport of choice. In junior high and high school, it's like the punishment in every other sport, but I just felt like I embraced doing the hard thing, even when I wasn't the most talented or athletic. I grew up wanting to be a fashion designer. Anyone else in the room into that? Yeah. So I held weekly fashion shows in my family's living room. That's how I knew. And then in college, I made money by hand sewing on vintage sweatshirts. So my mom, who owns a construction company back home in Indiana, sat me down and said, "Look, Suzanne, this fashion sewing thing, it's great." She encouraged it, but it's a hobby. Choose something more practical. So I chose journalism. So journalism as a career wasn't even on my radar until I had 2 internships, both unpaid. It is an industry that you practically have to beg to get your first job. But what I found during those internships was that it was the perfect fit for me. Every day, I had the ability to make a difference through the power of storytelling. I was assigned a new story every day, meeting new people every day, traveling to a new place every day, and I knew I had something special in those internships. I had people who believed in me. So at 22, I landed my first TV job, South Bend, Indiana. I was making $28,000 a year, and I had about $10 at the end of the paycheck each week, which I'm not afraid to admit I usually used for a Chipotle burrito bowl. And you know what? I embraced working the weekends, the holidays, the long hours, and I loved it. I quickly moved up the ranks. I won many awards. Becoming an anchor became my North Star. I followed that star here to Milwaukee, where my career accelerated. In the first few months, the station sent me with the U.S. Navy. This is a picture from that time. I went on an aircraft carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln, and I profiled a high-ranking female sailor from Milwaukee. Few people in the world got that opportunity, right? I started a cold case series, which is the picture on the right here, just one of the interviews we did, where I profiled unsolved murders in Milwaukee. And new information came in about a case that we profiled that helped solve it. Yeah, those are stories of resilience, right? And both of those were nominated for Emmys. Soon after that, I was promoted to the anchor desk. My face was on a billboard when you drove into Milwaukee. That's my claim to fame. No. My face was on a billboard. I wasn't even 30, and every day I was making a difference. I wasn't making $28,000 anymore. My husband and I bought a house in Tosa. Wow. Life was good. Yeah. It was around that time, 2021, I had just gotten back from the doctor for some annoying headaches, when my phone rang. No caller ID. I slid to answer. "So that imaging we took this morning," my primary care doctor said, "we found something. You have a brain tumor. What do you do?" Those words, and nope. What happened next changed my life. I went from having it all to not knowing what the next day could bring. In 18 months' time, I endured 2 brain surgeries. The second one while becoming a mom. I was facing death at the very moment I was also bringing life into this world. That duality, right, led to a before version of myself and a much stronger after version. And a big question I had to ask myself: what is the point of surviving it if I don't turn it into something more? It's the reason that I left that news desk more than a year ago, and the reason I'm now up here with you all as a public speaker, to combine my experience in journalism with the lessons I've learned through those 2 brain surgeries to guide groups when the script changes. So that when that moment finds you, with no blueprint and no guidebook, for someone in this room, that could look like when you feel that creative spark dimming under a deadline, when the noise gets louder at home and in your head, your schedule is packed again, you feel your purpose changing, and then the unexpected happens? I get it. I've been there. And I'm here to tell you that even in that moment, especially in that moment, there is hope. And you can discover that hope, even in the most challenging of times, through this framework of your mic that I'm about to share with you all today. When I say mic, you say check. Mic check, heck yeah. You guys are on it, you're listening. All right, cool. Okay, so before I show you the first picture I saw of my brain, I'll share the question I've gotten asked the most over the course of time, and that is, how did you find this brain tumor in the first place? And the answer is actually quite simple. I knew something wasn't right. And so for this story, I go back to 2021. I was having a dull, lingering headache. It was just like right back here for weeks. And I had tried just about every medication my primary care doctor could throw at me, and nothing was working. So I asked for imaging. My doctor told me it would be expensive. Likely nothing would come of it, but sure. But I knew what I was experiencing wasn't normal. It wasn't normal, and it turns out my intuition was spot on. Something was causing those headaches. So this is the first picture I saw of my brain. This is my cavernous sinus. Any medical people in here? No. You all laugh. So this is my cavernous sinus. In it is my carotid artery, which is your main blood supply to your head, my pituitary gland, master hormone gland, and optic nerves, so all things vision. A lot of important things. And the white-looking thing with the millimeters is my tumor. It's about the size, I will often change like what I describe it as, but I'm going to say a chunky cheese curd. Because you're Wisconsin people. So I'm staring at this image for the first time in my neurosurgeon's office, and I have tunnel vision from shock. My body had physically created a way to navigate nearly perfectly around this tumor in my head. For years. For years, my body grew this tumor, and for years, I had no idea. My husband and I looked at the neurosurgeon and said, this is kind of like that phrase, life is a game of inches. My neurosurgeon looked at us and said, not inches, millimeters. It was in that moment I knew I was millimeters away from a very different outcome. So there's no easy way, no obvious way to tell your family that you have a brain tumor. My family is an emailing family. So I did what we always do, emailed that I had a brain tumor. I sat on the spectrum of best case to worst case news. We were in the good news column. We were in the good news column. They said, what? My phone lit up. Suzanne, good news. You have a brain tumor. Are you going to die? Aren't you so scared? I also called my boss at the time, works at a news station. He's accustomed to crazy news stories every day. Said, I have a brain tumor. They tell me it's likely not cancerous, but I'm going to need the day off tomorrow to sort this out. And he said, well, how do they know it's not cancerous unless they drill in there and find out? Which is fair, but he also asked me this, how scared are you? How scared are you? It's no one's fault, right? But these reactions surprised me. Everyone was asking me if I was afraid, if I was fearful of the uncertainty. And it would have been easy to let the reactions of others dictate my own mindset. Was I scared? Absolutely. I wondered if I would survive brain surgery. We wanted to start a family. I wondered if I could get pregnant. Would I have to have my head cut open? I wondered how this would all impact my job. In the midst of all the what ifs, this thought came to mind. If millimeters were between life and death, In my case, every decision mattered, and that included my mindset. So my first takeaway for you on your mic today is mindset. Mindset matters. I changed my mindset from a fearful lens to a grateful one. I became grateful for the diagnosis, grateful to know about it, so I could develop a game plan. But choosing my mindset was not this big aha moment, right? I didn't follow a 5-step process. I didn't have a coach advising me how to do it. It started with one decision. When I felt the fear and pressure from this diagnosis, I chose to see it through a different mental frame. Looking back, that was pivotal. The reason research has shown that choosing your mindset can dramatically impact your health. Keyword, choosing. You have a choice. If I let my diagnosis send me into a spiral and stop me from enjoying everyday life, that would have impacted my health negatively, right? Just like reps in the weight room or laps around a track. Choosing your mindset in the moment is a skill. It's a skill that must be practiced. And then to take it a step further and remember, you have a choice how you want to see this challenge. Now, in this room, I would imagine, just from talking with a few of you today, more than one of you have felt pressure like I did. Maybe it's deadlines and job demands, or maybe it is a quiet pressure to create something that matters. It is easy to label that pressure as overwhelming or unfair, especially when that can be the conversations around you. But just like me, you have a choice. You can let that pressure dim your light or reframe it, reframing roadblocks as opportunities to grow and to prove yourself. You know, it's interesting. People don't make it to the top by feeling sorry for themselves and their circumstances, right? They learn how to build a resilient mindset where that pressure means possibility. And that power lies within each and every one of you. When I say Mike, you say check. Check? Mike? Check. Mike? Check. All right, we'll get this thing back up and running eventually. All right, so have any of you ever watched the news? I mean, it's a fair question, right? So when you work in news, like if you've watched the news, I'm sure you've had thoughts about the news, but when you work in news, oftentimes people want to come up, like there was not a day that went by that someone would not come up and be like, tell you what they think about whatever was on the news. So I want to ask a few of you, would anyone be willing to give me a one-word perception of the news? Just shit. Fair. Yeah, I've heard worse. Anyone else? Depressing, especially right now, right? Anyone else? Business? Okay, some people use it for business. So most often I would say I hear negative. People see the negative, they remember the negative, and that is their impression. Now it is true that the news has a lot of shootings, murders, and deaths, depending on where you live, but does one bad news story mean all news is bad? No, your perception is built over time, with repetition. That was my experience too. Every day as a journalist, I always tried to find the silver lining, the common thread, the good that connects us all, and wove that through my stories. Those were the stories I told and the story I told myself. All right, so in 2021, those of you who've lived here since then, you'll remember this story in Waukesha. A man drove through a Christmas parade. Several people died, including 8-year-old Jackson Sparks. He was walking with his baseball team in his baseball uniform when he was struck. In the days after covering that horrific story, we covered another story, which was his family's decision to start a foundation to help kids in need achieve their baseball dreams in his name. In 2020, there were weeks I was assigned COVID-related stories nearly every day. I was not home. I was out with a mask and a 6-foot pole with a microphone on the end of it, interviewing people. During COVID, nursing homes closed their doors to visitors. People died alone. And then window visits started. We were there as people were able to see their loved ones one last time through a window. There was a silver lining in sharing stories of hope. During COVID, entire hospitals pivoted. Entrepreneurs and businesses had to get creative, right? You had to think differently to make ends meet. Every day as a journalist, I saw bad things happen to good people. I was immersed in stories that people turned the channel on. They didn't want to hear them. I would come home with a heavy heart, sometimes in tears about the images I saw or the pain in people's voices. As a young intern, I would ask the tenured journalists, what advice do you have for a young person like me? And more people than I can count said, get out while you can. Yet I knew I was uniquely qualified for the job. Most people would rather turn away from tragedy. I knew, time has proven, tragedy brings resilience. I knew that in the heartache in people's voices, there were stories of good, the unexpected leaders, the comeback stories, the rallying calls for change. I had seen it hundreds of times. Tragedy and challenge can bring out the human spirit at its best. And that was the job. And learning that process made me a compassionate journalist, someone people trusted, someone people confided in, and someone who rose through the ranks. Until one story put me to the test. That story was my own. When it was my turn. When I got that call. The difference, that email to my family about the brain tumor being good news, said it all. I spent years seeing tough news through a different mental frame. That was a daily process I was practicing every day as a journalist. If I could find the silver lining in the thousands of stories I told for work, why couldn't I do that with my own diagnosis? So my second takeaway today on your mic is inner voice. Your inner voice narrates the story you tell yourself, which becomes the story you tell others. I'm going to repeat that. Your inner voice narrates the story that you tell yourself, which becomes the story you tell others. We often think about inner voice in the context of our own, the one that shows up when the room goes quiet, when the idea doesn't land, when the path forward isn't clear. But as I've been doing this work, I think the thing that a lot of people don't think about is companies and communities have them too. I want you to consider how you are contributing to the inner voice of your respective communities. Maybe it's this one. Maybe it's your family community, your faith, your job. When you hit adversity, what does your inner voice say? Maybe it has said, I'm failing, instead of, I'm learning. Or maybe it has said, this is so challenging, I don't know how the heck I'm going to get through this. Instead of, I will grow through this. The way you talk to yourself through that adversity is your inner voice. It's not only reflective of your mindset, but it shapes everything, your creativity, your energy, your growth trajectory. And people notice, right? Your self-talk impacts not just you, but it quietly impacts the communities that you are part of. Get curious, because that power of being able to recognize your inner voice in moments of adversity takes practice. And it's a practice that won't just serve you today, but when you need it most. All right, when I say Mike, you say check. Mike? Check. Mike? Check. I know, I'm still learning how to do this. All right, so in TV news, I'm gonna grab a drink of water real quick. In TV news, a lot changed during my decade in the profession. I'm sure you all probably could say that too in your jobs. But one thing was consistent, and that was a message from the higher ups. to the anchor teams, and no matter whatever job I worked. And that was show your personality. It's a message. And find new ways to do it on air and online. So naturally, that meant as a morning show TV news anchor, I attempted the latest TikTok trends, not including those here today. We'll save our time. I shared my wins often, right? You know, like when I got engaged and married, and my quirks, like I have a lot of shoes. It was normal for me to share my days, my life with the world. But suddenly, I had this big thing. I was about to have brain surgery. I didn't know if I would survive. What if I came out of all of this differently? I didn't want people thinking something was wrong with me. My job depended on it. And to be honest, I don't know if I ever truly would have been, like they say, ready to share that news with the world. So before I was ready one night, drafted a quick post and clicked publish. This was this post. This is the photo I shared. I crafted a quick message capturing my grateful mindset and what I hoped people would gain from my sharing, which was that without my persistence and advocating for myself, I never would have found this brain tumor until it was too late. And what I did not expect were the literally thousands of comments. Someone said to me, "You are a badass." It's like, that is empowering, right? That creates identity. Yeah. Someone else said to me, "You are surrounded by love." Never met that person. Someone else said, "You are one of the strongest people I have ever met." There was nothing against this sort of like generic thoughts and prayers, but the most powerful messages were personalized, custom, thoughtful messages that shaped the story I told myself. The story I told myself became, I can do this. I do have a support network. People believe in me. And I would need that strength. So a little on the backstory here, my first brain surgery, both of them actually, were through my nose. That's how they accessed my tumor. You wouldn't know that about me today, and you also wouldn't know that about me on the day of surgery because it is a scar you can't see. I was so proud, 6 weeks after that surgery, to go back on live TV, asked my husband and my neurosurgeon to go on TV with me, told my story, and said to the world, the toughest is behind me. Or so I thought. So part of what I do up here is look at all of you, and you may feel something as we lock eyes. Eye contact can invoke something deep within us, a powerful emotion when you really look into someone's eyes. There was a time a doctor stared directly into my eyes, and I found myself on the other side of fear. Just 14 months had passed since that first brain surgery, a little over a year, when the headaches returned. I was accustomed to staring at the lights of the TV news studio when I was back in bed, staring at the ceiling fan, paralyzed by pain. The pain made me so sick, I had to stop working. I couldn't drive. I went out on short-term disability. But what happened next? No one had answers to. So out of nowhere, my right eyelid shut. It just shut. Doctors initially worked to figure out if this was life-threatening, not just to me, to my baby. I was pregnant. So here's what would happen. My right eyelid would shut, and then it would open. This kept happening for half of my pregnancy. Those close to me would say, well, isn't this just pregnancy? Weird things happen. My doctors dismissed that. 4 doctors at any given time working to try to figure this out. But for months, I had no diagnosis, which made a treatment plan while pregnant pretty complex. I was growing a living being, a sweet baby girl. Every decision I made wasn't just about my health and survival. It was about her too. Could I take this medication while I'm pregnant? Would steroids really not affect my baby? Was I eating enough? Was I drinking enough water? Another hospital admission. What was causing all of this anyways? Would I really need another brain surgery? This is the line I walked until I knew it had to come to an end. And it did. When I gave birth early to a happy, healthy, beautiful baby girl who we named Jane. It was a relief. My baby was on my chest. My eye was open at the time. But as quickly as things had changed in my life, so did my health. It would be minutes before that familiar head pain overtook the pain of childbirth, and with it, a new symptom. A new symptom that was met with that look of fear from my neurologist. Something isn't right. That's all she said. She got another doctor on FaceTime, and together, here's what they noticed. So my right eyelid was shut. This was not new. What was new, which you can't see here, but my right pupil was dilated and not responding to light. And as they moved a pen across the front of my face, only one eye was tracking. Those three things are medically a slam dunk for what's called a complete third nerve palsy. I was at risk of losing functioning in my right eye. I was still hobbling around from childbirth, and I was told get to the ER immediately, where I would undergo a second brain surgery just 2 weeks after giving birth. I paused because, man, you see me. You see I'm okay. But after that second brain surgery, I did not know if I would be. When I opened my eyes, one eye was working. I couldn't taste or smell from brain surgery, and I couldn't bend or lift over 5 pounds. So as a new mom, I wasn't even supposed to lift my baby. My body was tested, and so was that mindset. I would ask doctors, how has this gone for other people? Did their eye open? Because mine wasn't. And they would tell me there was no playbook for what I was experiencing because to their knowledge, no one had gone through all the same things physically I had in the same way. And that can make you feel pretty lonely. And that is where my story took a turn with another click. So this is right after the second brain surgery. I did not know if my eye would ever open. I did not know if I would return to a job that I loved. I did not know how to be a mom of a newborn while also recovering from brain surgery. I shared this photo on social media with a caption that was honest. I said, as someone who uses her words for a living, I've struggled to find them because this all has been really hard. Because it was. And then I took it a step further, sharing this. A raw, vulnerable moment I thought I'd never be showing any of you. And something happened. What I thought was such a rare experience wasn't. People saw a bit of themselves in this photo. The unexpected health challenge, motherhood, a story of overcoming. By sharing this photo, I had discovered a community of support. People reached out who had been through challenge, people who knew what uncertainty felt like. They didn't have to know what having a newborn at home while also recovering from brain surgery felt like. They didn't need to. But they had their own scars that others couldn't see, or visible ones as mine had now become, and their response in calls, texts, messages was this. My challenge, while unique, was also universal. Challenge is universal. We have all been through it. The isolating experience I thought was so rare wasn't. They got it. And it was because I was strong enough to share those feelings of fear and uncertainty, I had discovered a community of support. My third and final takeaway for you today is community. Build your community. The people you want to surround yourselves with before you need it. I have to tell you, and I know we're getting close on time, seeing a community of people rally behind me was a bit like attending my own funeral. You get to see who brings the platters of sandwiches for your family, who comes early for the rosary, who you really weren't expecting to see, and who doesn't show up at all. The whole experience showed me in order to get support, you have to be supportive. You have to be the person people want in their life. And that is where you oftentimes have to take a hard look at your behavior. If you know someone going through something, think through your words and press send, because that network of people you're uplifting will be the very same ones who help you when you need it most. And that practice, that habit, can start today. Okay, so today is all about hope, right? I'm gonna bring this home. Oh goodness, so today is all about hope. It's actually funny. I've said the word only a few times during this whole presentation. But you know the crazy thing about it? I could tell you all I want about hope. I could go back and trace when I think it began first in my life and how the heck I was able to keep it during a really challenging season. But none of that really matters unless you feel it. None of that really matters unless you feel hope. You won't remember how I defined hope today, but you will remember how you felt hearing this story, being here. This is hope for me. This is the feeling I get sharing with you at this point in the presentation, my family, and tell you that Jane is 3 and she is happy and she is healthy. She would love that. Yeah, she would love an applause. It is the feeling I get sharing with you and just telling you every day how fortunate I am to be here doing this when I know not every person diagnosed with a brain tumor gets an outcome like this. Hope is the foundation to get through whatever is in front of you using your mic. Check. Hey, heck yeah. So when you leave here today, I challenge you to reframe your mindset to see a challenge differently. I practice listening to your inner voice and that story you tell, and create the power of community. You know, for so long, I thought my job was my North Star. I told you that at the beginning, right? I told myself I would not stop until I won those Emmy Awards. But you want to know what really happened on stage at the Emmys? I was waiting for my name to be called. I waited. I heard the claps. And I realized my name wasn't called. It took me a moment to understand. My name was being called, just not on that stage. It was being called here. I was being tapped time and time again to be the storyteller of my own journey, to empower others, to follow a new North Star, and to do the hard thing, to redefine my own standard of what success looked like. My name is Suzanne Spencer. I survived 2 brain surgeries and left my dream job to give you a framework when the script changes. I'm going to end with a beautiful quote that Linda photographed for me, and it is something that's powered me through highs and lows in my life, and that is, when you are down, keep your head up. But when you are up, keep your head down. I like that reaction. Thank you.